we'll just keep chatting away there, but
So can we, your camera needs to get checked.
from the camera.
Nothing. That is absolutely perfect.
Are we just checking a little bit of a technical check
I mean,
before we start?
I can't really say much because I've not actually done anything with the technical stuff.
But you
It's all on you. So the volume's up. There's no robot voices.
No.
Why do we have that? Why do we have the guest speaker on as well?
Well, just safety, eh? 'Cause
Rewind.
you might have some like really good guests coming on, and then I forgot to put the
You
volume
put them
up.
up. Okay, no, I can
So you
see.
muted them.
That would be a sore arse, eh?
Have you muted it?
Yeah, like, do you want to sit here? We'll swap for a day.
No, we're okay, thanks.
Do you know what? It's just a bit uncomfortable. It's like lying on the wrong side of the bed.
Yeah,
There's your side of the bed.
So whenever you go to a hotel room, okay, do you then picture your own room and say, no, I need to lie on the left-hand side of the bed or the right-hand side of the bed?
You definitely want to lie on the
Which side of the bed is the right side?
right side.
So one opposite the left side.
The right side.
So do you sleep on the right-hand side or the left-hand side of
The
the bed?
right hand side. But now what I've realised when I'm sleeping, because my shoulder's knackered on the left side, I can't lie on my left. But now something's happened on my right. Maybe it's because it's compensating. So when I lie on my right, I get sore. So now I just lie on my back. And guess what happens? Snore.
Oh,
It's like the beach whale on the bed.
there's a lot of people snore, eh? Like,
Okay.
I don't snore.
You reckon?
We've only got your word for it, though.
Yeah. Like, I don't snore. I might
Okay.
on odd occasion, but I'm
No,
not a
no,
snorer.
no. If you say so.
To be honest, when we're away,
You don't hear me snore.
saying that, we normally put you in the room.
Aye, because you like to sleep together.
Me and Andy, he is a great cuddler.
There's just so much wrong with this conversation.
It's like, what's that in my back?
It's his knee.
Oh, gentlemen.
Anyway, what about, I was thinking today, acquisition. We've had a few guests on that just have sold their businesses, but a view from the other side if you want to start to grow your business. And one of the quickest ways is through acquisition. So we're going to grill you today, Wicus, on acquisition.
That's a great idea.
Like I've done
All right.
one. I've bought a small business over. So have you, Johnny.
I have, yep.
So I've done it. But let's get into it.
Yeah, so I think acquisition is just really buying a business, and you need to do the numbers in your head. So if you want to grow, it's a good way to grow your business. But I'll say this to you, when you buy a business, when you sell your business, it's willing buyer, willing seller. Because in your mind, you go to your accountant and they value your business at a specific formula. And you think that's what your business is worth. Let me just tell you that it's not what it's worth, because I don't really care about your history. If I'm looking at acquiring a business, what am I actually buying? I'm buying your future income, your future profits. That's what I'm buying. And very few business owners understand that. So they think they have a great business that's given them lots of results, and now they want to sell it. And they think it's going to be easy. They think their competitors are going to snap them up. Guess what? They're not going to. They're going to bargain down your price. Mm-hmm. Because whether you like it or not, they look at the factors that drive the revenue. So little things. I would say to you, when you look at an acquisition, is how reliant is that business on you as the owner? Rule of thumb, 1/3 of clients will leave because they've got a personal relationship with you. They'll just leave, okay? So already I'm down. So already I have to adjust my asking price by 1/3 because 1/3 of your customers will leave. 1/3 of your customers will leave over time. And the third that will stay is the customers you never wanted in the first place. But that happens over time. And if that business is really reliant on you, so if you don't put in a management team, if I can't see that, okay, and the only way you can see that really is to look at the owner, to have that due diligence, big word, but you want to start checking things. You really do want to start checking things. And also when you buy a business, are you buying the business? Are you buying the company? Or are you just buying the assets? Like, Michael, when you did your acquisitions, we only bought the contracts.
So we're only buying contracts.
And you're buying the contracts. Because when you buy a business, there's lots of things that you need to worry about. So if the business has got staff, you need to take over the staff. If they've been there for 20 years, you can't just get rid of them. So there's a lot to think about in an acquisition. So I'm going to let you guys ask me questions about acquisitions. I'll give you some.
What about the first one being, like, what is an acquisition then? Because not everyone's going to really understand that.
Acquisition, in quite simple terms, is you're buying another business that's either complementary to your business. So it'll be something like if, Michael, an acquisition for you could be one of two things. You could either buy another letting agent because that is complementary to your business, or you could buy an estate agent because that is also complementary to your business. Okay. Or you could buy a company, you could buy Johnny for that matter.
Oh, you can buy me.
It's expensive.
You could buy Johnny, then he takes care of your maintenance. So all of those things are complementary. So that they're either what they call vertical or horizontal.
Yeah.
So you're either buying your customers or you're buying your suppliers. One of those two.
And this is helping you get market share.
Yeah. So market share is just help your business to be represented in a bigger area. So if you then buy Johnny and you've bought another letting agent, you then dominate 5. That's just what an acquisition really is. It's buying another business to grow your business. It's a good growth strategy, but you need to know what you're doing when you do it. Very often you'll get your solicitors involved and they'll charge you a whack load of money, or you get your accountant involved and they do a due diligence. And the due diligence is we're just checking that everything that the people say. But I've seen some shocking deals put together from accountants and solicitors.
So let's see or hear an example of that then. What does a bad one look like?
So a bad deal looks like that there's no protection for you. So when you buy a business, you pay all the money up front. Bad deal from day one.
Yeah.
Because you've got no protection.
Clawback agreements.
So you want to have clawbacks. You want to have things where called warranted earnouts, where you base it, because you're basing it on somebody's history. Okay. So when I look at a business, the first thing I look at, it starts with the numbers. The numbers tell me everything I know about that business. And from the numbers, I can tell you whether or not they have a growth strategy. I can tell you how reliant they are on a certain set of customers or staff. I can tell you if the business is generating cash flow. I can tell you about the revenue model. I can tell you a lot of things by just looking at the numbers. So the numbers is really, really important. And it is your business, and you want to make sure that your numbers represent a fair reflection of your business's value. What a lot of guys do is they use their businesses as a personal piggy bank. And that's good if you're never going to sell your business. But when you want to sell your business, that's when it becomes a problem. So it's hitting that balance about being tax effective and using your business to fund your lifestyle.
I take it that comes down to future planning.
Yeah.
And a question I would like to ask is what colour your socks are? No, I'm kidding.
Not wearing any today.
When you talk about staff, you're obviously looking at staff retention. You're asking people, who's the longest serving person in your organisation? How many of them are there? How do you establish the culture if you're buying that business and you're taking the staff over as well? How do you realise who you're keeping, who you're not keeping? And how do you realise what the internal culture's like?
So that is probably, I will say to you, there are 3 big reasons why acquisitions fail. The number one reason for me is it's never about the money. Money is always the last thing. It's about the culture, because you cannot evaluate that culture. But a good way of getting to know the culture is have they written down their set of values. And when I say values, I don't want to hear the words integrity and respect. I want to hear something like make every penny count. I want to hear something like doing the right thing. And then I want to see, have they actually determined the attitude, the behavior, and the outcome? Have they actually done something like that? And how is it demonstrated? But when you buy a business and you buy staff, there's something called to-pay, transfer under protection of employment. You have to take them over. But you have no idea who you're buying. So I would re-interview the staff, see where they are, because the owner will give you his perception of the staff. Are they good? Are they bad? They could all be bad. And then you're stuck with him. You are stuck with him.
Yeah.
And you also have to remember that your contract could be different to their contract of employment. So now you have to go into consultation to get everybody on the same page. Rates of pay could be different. There's a lot that goes into it that people don't necessarily think about when they acquire a business, and especially when it's people. But culture is a big thing. And, when you're starting to put together an organizational structure, who's good for what role? Because you could have a very, very good operations manager, but they could have a very good one as well. Who do you put in that role? So it becomes really tricky. But people are the biggest reason that they fail. It's cultural. Is they don't share the same values. They're not going to show up in the same way. They've always done it their way. Now you want them to do it your way. So it's a bit of a compromise when you buy a business. Buying a business is tricky because you have to integrate it into your business. And you really want your business to do it the way your business has done it. But what if they've done it better than you have?
Oh, I think that's one of the things you look at is what are they doing better than you and what are they not, and just that's where you try and merge the two together. Not easy, but what about red flags? What are the red flags? If you're going to look at a business, what are the main red flags?
For me, there's three. Reliance on the owner. If the owner does everything, if the owner knows everything about that business, I'm already worried because it means that there's too much of reliance on the owner. Second thing is lack of a growth strategy. How did they grow that business? How did they get there? And third thing is cash flow. Is that business generating cash or is it eating cash? Because I can see where the money is going to. Those are red flags. But you worry about things like, is all his revenue coming from customers? How many of his customers give him his revenue? So you need to look at the customers, because if you've got a business where turnover is coming from 5 customers and he's got 20 customers, you're at risk.
Yeah.
Because what if 3 of those customers go, you know what, I like you, but I don't like you that much. I buy from you on price. You have no idea what that is like. And and you could give me the best Google reviews. And I'm not saying Google reviews and Facebook reviews don't have their place, but that's subjective. Okay. They don't have net promoter score or customer effort score. So net promoter score is just a simple question is, how likely are you to refer and recommend? Customer effort score, how easy is it to do business? Business owners don't want to talk to their clients. They don't want to engage them. That's one aspect. And I want to look at client engagement. If you've got 100 clients and you send out a survey and only 10 clients reply, there's an issue.
Yeah.
But those are things that comes after the fact. They're not right there, then and there. So very often when guys think they're going to sell their businesses, they might have sold the shareholder and go, it's easy because these guys should want to buy me. That's in your mind. Your competitors are thinking completely differently. And you think, no, they should buy me. Why should they not buy me? Doesn't work like that. It's a lot harder to do it because the guys buying you are going to try and get the best possible deal on the table. So they're going to bargain you down.
So for someone thinking about selling their business, what's the, say, 3 top things that they should be considering before they're thinking about putting it out to market, within 2 or 3 years? What should they be doing?
So that is the time frame. From the time that you decide to sell your business to the time you can actually sell it is 3 years. I think the first thing you need to get a handle on is your numbers. Okay, you really need to show them just little things like your sales growth. Okay, it can't be like a heart rate monitor up and down. So it's got to be 10%, 15%, 16%. And then when I ask you, how did you grow your business or why did it grow by this? You need to be on top of your numbers and say, you know what, in 1 year, I serviced 1,000 clients. The following year, I serviced 1,200 clients. My average selling price was £1,200. Now it's £1,500. Okay, now I know you know what you're talking about because you actually understand the numbers behind your business. By telling you that I've serviced 1,000 clients at an average selling price of £1,500, if you multiply the two by one another, you think you get my turnover. But what I've left out is the frequency because I could do it every 2 months, every 3 months. So you have no idea what my turnover is. In your head, you can think it, but it might be far away from the truth. So getting your numbers into a state where your gross profit margin, the difference between your sales and what it costs you to deliver that sales, that needs to be stable. Your expenses to sales need to be good. Your sales or your costs can't grow at a rate greater than your sales. Your expenses can't grow at a rate greater to your sales because that means you've got no control. So getting those numbers right, because that's what your accountant will produce for somebody. And that's what they're going to use to value your business. They're going to look at those numbers. And if your numbers don't stack up, it's going to be the second thing is reduce the reliance on yourself. Make it easy to replicate. So I have standard operating processes, or you can call them whatever you want to, but it's the same way of doing things. Third thing I would say is have a very clear growth strategy. How are you going to grow your business? What are you going to be doing differently? Because that's what you don't think about. You don't think about growth strategy. I would say also, what's your revenue model like? So Starbucks, great business, bad revenue model.
Yes.
Because they rely on you going there. They put their stuff. So now they've given you a loyalty card. So you've got an app, so you go there more often. Or you buy the stuff in the supermarket. Apple, iCloud, great revenue model. Okay, and I think I've told you this before. Apple reckons they've got 1 billion iCloud users. Let's just say they're wrong. Let's just say it's 500 million. Let's just say we don't believe that either. We halve it again. They've got 250 million users. Everybody paying £1 a month. 250 million pounds every month, or 3 billion. Makes your business so much easier.
Such a struggle, eh?
Must be
Such a struggle.
the struggle is real.
Brilliant business model.
So that's what you need to look at.
Revenue.
Recurring revenue. So can you change your revenue model? And very often people go, no, we can't. Often people go, no, we can't. I don't know. You need to challenge yourself. Start thinking outside the box. There are lots of businesses that are changing their revenue models. So if you have to start afresh every month, that becomes a lot more difficult, because what if the economy slows down? What happens then? And then price points, costing, all of those things is what you need to look at. Are you actually making a profit? Are you not making a profit? And that's why I tell you the numbers are key. It tells you a story. If you as a business owner want to sell it or you want to buy it, it goes to both parties. Making sure, I suppose one of the biggest risks is you're reliant on one key staff member, somebody that knows everything about your business. Because I'm not only buying, so think about it, you stepping away from your business, because I really don't want you there. Two chiefs never works.
Yeah.
Yeah? So what if you've got one staff member that knows everything about that business and they decide to leave?
It's your crisis management. When you're in business for a good amount of years, you start listening to other people and you start getting the education along the way. So, the words like crisis management, I never knew, I said, what does that mean? And it's you're always protecting your business. And you're 100% right. And hopefully it resonates with people and they understand what we're talking about here, because it's so important. So getting your revenue model, your growth strategy, your culture, your people, making sure you've got your crisis management. There's not one person that could screw your business over. You're not heavily relying on them, and distance yourself. So imagine that you could go on holiday for 2-3 weeks and everything can happen. Yes, you might have to make a few phone calls here and there, just steering the ship in the right direction, but really it's distancing yourself so it runs efficiently without you being in it. And that's when it becomes more valuable, you're saying. And
absolutely. And I would say to you is you need to ask yourself, why do I want to buy this business? Why do I want it? So large organizations, you know what they do? They go, okay, if I open up an office in this area, it's going to cost me X amount in marketing, X amount in staff, blah, blah, blah. And they work out and they come up, it's going to cost me £1 million. I can buy a business that's already up and running for £1 million. Which one of the two do you think they do? They buy the one for £1 million because they get revenue instantaneously.
Yeah.
Okay. So you as a business owner need to adopt that mindset. And then there's always different ways of funding it, because that is where a lot of deals break down as well, is in money.
Yep.
Okay. Because there isn't that much money available, despite what you think. The bank, they want the rights to your firstborn child. They want the kidney. They want your house. I think banks have lost their sense of purpose. They're there to borrow money. They're there to take risk. And for that, they charge you interest. But banks look at business plans, and I've said to you before, it's an outdated methodology. It comes back from the great crash and the depression of 33. And the banks were going belly up, and they didn't know who they were borrowing money to. So we're using a practice dating back to 1933 to evaluate businesses. Okay? Is that still relevant today? I don't think it is, but could be different. But a business plan just validates it. You've done the research. That's all it does. It validates it. It doesn't put food on your table. It doesn't make sure you're going to make money. It's in the practical implications. And guys don't understand that. They don't understand it's the practicalities of bringing the two cultures together. Big failure. What if people butt heads?
So here's a question for you, Mike. How did you go around buying another business?
Like I had some funding there in the business and personally that I put in as a director's loan, which managed to get it. I didn't really outsource any funding. We kind of did it all in-house.
We did it all in-house. So but what we did is we had a very, very good clawback scheme.
Yeah. So clawback agreement's key.
Yeah. So clawback agreement is key. So what we did is, so in Michael's example is we said, and I'm just going to make up numbers, okay? Let's just say we said we're buying 50 properties, and my numbers need to make sense in my head. So I'm going to say we bought 50 properties and we're going to pay you 100 grand for it. But we're only going to pay you 30 grand on day one when we sign the agreement.
Yep. Based
on 50 properties. In 6 months' time or 3 months, we will see how many properties we've lost. And if we lost it, we will adjust the price. So we would have said 30,000 on day one, 30,000 after 6 months, and 40 grand at the end of the year. Okay, so that's the full 100 grand over the period of a year. In month 6, we do a calculation. We said we started with 50, we now got 30 properties. So we can't pay you 30 grand anymore because we've got a value per property.
Yeah, and it's future. This is your future revenue you're buying.
Future revenue. So that's why I said you're always buying future income, future revenue. So you need to be sure when you sell that business, when I'm buying it, I want to be very sure that what you say is going to happen is going to happen. It's no good you have the best brand in the world and go, oh, I've got these great things, because what am I actually buying? What am I buying? And you know, it becomes more difficult when it is service-based industries like estate agents. What am I actually buying? I'm buying your brand. Oh, that's lovely. How does I put food on my table?
I know. And there's that where people are buying the bravado and showing off. You're like, right, come on, it's all about the numbers. It's about making that profit.
But it's how sure can I be on those numbers? How can I be sure that when you leave, I'm still going to make those numbers? What are you doing to convince me that this is going to be good? Because sometimes you get a competitor. So sometimes you could just be a thorn in the side of a competitor and they go, you know what, we've got a big checkbook. We're just going to take you out. Okay, that happens rarely, but it does happen. So all you do is you create your strategy to just be a thorn in their side. But you never win on price, because bigger guys will any day of the week.
Yeah.
They've got bigger pockets, they can outprice you, and they can drive you out of the market very easily. So it needs to be something where it really adds value to your business and you can see long-term future sustainability.
So you see, when you're looking to buy a business over, there's other ways that you can, other ways you can skin the cat. So you can maybe go into that business and work with them for 6 months before you actually make a purchase, just to understand that it is for you. And you may have to sign an NDA just to make sure you're not.
So do you think
anything.
Do you think an NDA is worth the paper it's written on?
Probably not.
Okay.
I think there's more promise and trust in a handshake.
Yeah. I say to you, an NDA is great. It's a big term that we think protects ourselves. Okay. But the moment I get you to sign an NDA and I look at your business, I know everything about your business that I need to know. And let me tell you, despite your best intentions and everything, you'll make small changes that you've learned best practices. It happens because now you shared your secret sauce with me. So let's just say I don't go ahead with it. Okay. You've told me everything. I've got so much market intelligence about how your business works, how you do it. I've got all the knowledge I need. And I'll go, it's just not right for me at this time. Okay. I might not use that knowledge right now. And if you write a very good NDA, it protects you for 2 or 3 years. But in 2 or 3 years, I can start making those changes. I understand more about your market. I understand more about your business. I understand everything about your customers. It's a risk. But you're right. I would always say use other people's money. So what I would do is I would always do like a warranted earnout, or I would say to them, listen, let's work together. Yeah. And there'll always be an upside and a downside. So if we don't make it, you get less money. But if we do make it, you get more money.
Because you might have somebody that wants out the business altogether, and selling it and coming away from altogether might not be the right answer. But if you can maybe semi-retire them and they're still getting a wage every month, and, over a period of time, you can...
Yeah, and you can give them lump sum payments somewhere in the future where the business is generating that income.
Yeah,
that's kind of what we were looking at initially.
Yeah.
Because you want to make the deal flavoursome for everybody. So there's no parting ways and feeling bitter or anything like that, or animosity. But I think everything worked for our deal. Straightforward.
Your deal was very, very straightforward. A lot easier because we knew what we were buying. We didn't buy a company. We also just bought supplier agreements and customer base. That's what we buy. So when you buy a company, it becomes a lot more difficult because you need to make sure that, let's just say you supply products. You need to worry about what they call product warranties. So if I'm selling, give me a product, but a product where something can go wrong.
I don't know.
Most things.
Oh my God.
Toilet brush.
No. You don't.
Let's just say, oh my God.
Yeah. So
generator.
So I'm buying generators. Okay. And I've got a supplier that supplies me generators. What is the warranty that he puts on those generators? Because let's just say I supply a generator to a manufacturing concern. They start using the generator catches fire, it burns my place down to the ground. Who's to blame? Now I've bought this company, okay? What do? You need to look at things like, and that's called warranties in an agreement. You need to think like VAT, HMRC.
Yeah.
Because you could buy a business that's not registered for VAT and your accountants give you all the advice. And then all of a sudden HMRC makes a determination that you should have been paying VAT and they backdate it. And there's like 10 million pounds due. Who's responsible for that? So you need to know, and that's where a good solicitor is worth his salt.
I've just found out. So it's not on the accountant to have that. It's actually the business owner that should know when they're VAT registered.
Yeah, so they should know, but your accountant is there to hold your hand and to advise you. Okay, because you don't know.
You can't go chasing your accountant because you're now suddenly found you're being VAT registered for 8 months.
Your accountant is never to blame. So if anything goes wrong, you go to prison. That's just the way it is because you're not audited.
I heard this quite nice. You get fed, you get TV.
Free food, free TV, you can educate yourself.
Some vocation, there's nice garden. You get away for the wife and kids for a while. Or the husband and the kids for a while.
I think you want to engage your accountant, and the more you can look at the numbers, the more numbers you have and the more detail you get. And I look at things like customers. I want to see, so you can take out all the names of your customers. So let's just say your customers, just call them client 1 to 20, but keep them the same for the last 3 years. And I just want to see if they're spending more or less money with you. Just want to understand if you're dropping off. I want to have some sort of certainty around it. But people get fixated on a EBITDA multiple and they go, oh, well, somebody sold their business for twice this. Willing buyer, willing seller in the market. Willing buyer, willing seller. That's what it always goes down to. Why would I buy you? Because if I'm going to buy you, am I going to double my market share? Am I going to increase my revenue? There needs to be a tangible benefit. I need to be able to see it.
And you'll have an opportunity as well there where you'll have like all the outgoings you've got for each business, you can cut back on a lot of those because you've got systems that will take on the workload and you can cut costs and make it more profitable is one of the things. But question for you here is debt. If you're going to actually buy the business, an ongoing business, not just contracts, like what if there's debt on that business? Then you take that debt on as well, or?
It depends on how you structure the deal. So it really does depend on how you structure the deal. Because if you had to take on debt, you have to factor that into your asking price. But debt is normally secured. It's normally secured through either an asset or a personal guarantee from the director. So I would never think it's a good idea to take on debt in a business because you don't know where it comes from.
The debt could be vehicles.
Could be a bank loan. It could be vehicles. It could
computers, servers, all these things.
Anything that you have to pay out that you don't already own.
Yeah. So if it's been secured by the director, how does that work then?
So if it's been secured by the director, you're going to have to go to whoever your funder is, okay? Because the bank isn't just going to transfer liability.
No.
They're not just going to do that. You think they do, they don't.
Yeah.
So either you have to give the director cash, pay off that thing, and you own the asset, you own whatever it is, or you got the bank, you're going to have to get the bank to agree that you become liable. But then again, you put your house on the line, your firstborn, your kidney. You need to really think about an acquisition. It's not just about, today I'm going to buy this business.
And I think that's when you're mentioning the 3 years, it's giving you time to plan it, strategically plan it, going forward to that day that you sell it. So it's really good insights.
Because most people want to sell their businesses because it's their pensions, okay? Most people want to sell their businesses. But then when they get to the point of selling it, and I'm sitting down with them and I'm saying, okay, show me your numbers, okay? I see that heart rate monitor. Immediately I'm nervous because I can see they have no growth strategy. I can see some years they generate cash, some years they eat cash. Can't tell me how they've grown the business. They go, yeah, we've got more customers. Can't tell me average client value. Can't tell me average profitability. Job profitability. When you start looking into it, it's like, what are we going to do here? Reliance on customers, key suppliers, cash flow, revenue model. The biggest one for me, one of the basics is how happy and satisfied are your customers? And we all have Google reviews and we think it's great, but we don't send out net promoter score, customer effort score. And we don't look at how many of our clients engage and think, if you've got 100 clients, okay, and you send out a net promoter score question, and that question is just, how likely are you to recommend me and refer me to your grandmother and your sister? And you don't get 9s and 10s, you have a problem.
Okay, and if you only get 20 people back to you.
That is the bigger problem because it means that whatever you tell me, you could tell me I've got the best business, but it means that your clients aren't engaged.
Yeah.
I can see that straight away. And then I'm like, okay, now my risk factors jump up and I start looking at things differently. I recognize there's a role for what they call, you get different valuation methodologies depending on your business. So you can either evaluate if your business uses assets like plant machinery, diggers and that. You can use what they call a net asset value, which is the value of your assets less the value of your liabilities. That can give you a value of your business. There is what they call an EBITDA multiple, and EBITDA just stands for it's your profit before interest, tax, and depreciation. You can get a multiple of that, but that's historical. I like to use something called a discounted cash flow, but it's just a really big word. Is I project forward, and then I look at the risk and I adjust it for the risk to see what the cash is. And then in between there, you've got different, and the last one you probably could use is revenue. If you've got good recurring revenue, you could charge, so in the lettings industry, anywhere between 1.25 and 2, depending on your book. Okay, because I'm buying your contracts. Yep. So the longer your contracts are, the higher that multiple is. Those are 4 ways of looking at, but it is willing buyer, willing seller. Because I can value your business at 3 million or 2 million. And somebody comes in, I go, I'm not going to pay you $1 million for these and these reasons. Mm-hmm. But you need to be fair. I think that's one thing I would say is you need to be fair. Both sides of the coin need to be fair. You need to understand that it's not just going to be that easy. You need to be fair in your valuation, in how you do it, how you pay your clients, how you pay your guys. Very often there's not enough protection for the guy buying it. There's too much. The seller gets all the benefits. So when you think about it, I'm dealing with one at the moment where the business's total value is 250. That's what I would pay for a day in, day out. The guy wants a 250, plus he wants his debtor's book, and he wants the cash in the bank. So now it's sitting at 600. So I'm like, okay, then you need to pay off all these debts as well, but it's still at 400. There's a £150,000 discrepancy. Now, depends on how desperate you are. Are you going to do that deal or not? Because it's a bad deal every day of the week. Mm-hmm. Okay, because the numbers don't lie. So that's when ego steps in. And ego makes the decision. Never ever make a decision out of ego. It's just interesting little things like that you pick up when people are buying businesses. They think, no, it's a good deal. But the numbers don't lie. I will pay you $250 any day of the week. And this is how I'll pay you. And there are ways to structure deals.
Yeah, of course there is. Oh, well, that was really interesting. Any more questions on that?
Clawback, I think, on that. What was I going to say on that? If you've bought, like we bought all our properties on a portfolio from another company, but the clawback really is on you to make sure it's not you that's making customers leave or these new customers.
Yeah, so if it's your fault, you can't penalize the seller. But if a client just come and go, we don't want to deal with you anymore, that's not your fault.
Yeah, so that's where I think it was quite key to get that in there.
You also need, if I would say, you'd also need to tie them, if you're not sure, you need to tie them to certain profit warranties saying, if we do everything the way you're doing things, because you don't really want to change too much. If we don't hit these numbers, then we adjust your price. That's a warranted earnout called. Yeah. It's called warranted earnout.
There was a guy in Edinburgh around the same time had bought over a portfolio, doubled his portfolio, but he didn't have a clawback in it, and he lost. I'm sure it was about 50% of the properties he lost.
Yeah,
and that revenue's gone, and he had no comeback on it.
I mean, you can't come back from that. You can't come because you're not protected. Yeah. So that's why I said you never pay the full price unless you are 110% sure that nothing. So if all your clients are contracted, and you need to look at your client contracts as well, it's called heir succession and rights. So you need to be able to ensure that those contracts can be succeeded to you. So ceded means transferred. Because if it can't be, you have to go write new contracts with clients. And if you write new contracts with clients might come back and go, oh, no, I don't really like your new terms and conditions, so I'm not going to sign on. So how do you protect yourself from that? So there's a lot more involved when you're talking about mergers and acquisitions for it. But if you take anything away from today is you're buying your future profits. The past just tells me how well you've run your business. It's got no bearing on my valuation at all. I look at your future. Your past gives me an idea, but I'm buying your future. How good is your future going to be? And guys don't look at that. They don't look at growth strategies. And growth strategies doesn't have to be difficult. It can be very, very simple. But most guys don't have a hand on their numbers. That is where it starts. They think it's their accountant's problem. And they only look at sales. They say, okay, I grew my sales. So next time, sit with your accountant, okay? And say to them, the accountant will come, you've had a good year because your sales grew by 20%. I can see that. I know that. I see it on my bank balance. Then you ask them, why? Then they go, well, you must have sold more. Why? They don't understand why you sold. They don't understand if you sold to more customers or less customers. They don't do those analysis.
It's understanding the mechanics of how the business is operating, how it's advertising, how it's conducting itself.
There we go.
How it's retaining, why and how it's retaining clients.
There we go.
It's that overall feeling.
Client lifetime value, things that you know about your business.
Yep.
That accountants does know. Where do you write that down? where do you keep that information? Because that's information that when the guy comes to do a assessment or due diligence on your business, they want access to that. They want to understand where that money's coming from. And if you don't have that information, I'm going to go, oh, you're not well prepared.
So maybe it's a good shout. I'm selling my business for $1 million.
You
Cash.
You should go, I'm selling it for 2 million.
2 million. Exactly.
Because it is what you want to buy. Are you buying a brand? Are you buying a reputation? Are you buying your competitor to take them out of the market because they create so much disruption for you?
Well, I think for people, the brand it's got to be recognisable. So there is truck with that. But then it's the mechanics of where that's it. Because it's like the glossy mag. You sell the dream on the whatever the brand is, but until you get into the mechanics, the nitty-gritty, the mechanics of it, you go, wow, this is either one, an absolute joke, I've been sold a lie, or you go, right, okay, there's a few tweaks to be made here. Something can happen here. So everything's got a point to play in it.
There's so many dots that you need to connect. But if you do a proper due diligence, you might come to the realization that I'm actually buying a house of cards. I can just do these things myself.
I was just going to say that's an option. The acquisition might not be spending all that money to buy another company when, there might not be the value there.
It might not be the value there.
You can spend that money building your own business the way you want it built.
Yeah, and that's when NDAs, because now I've given you, so somebody comes, Michael, and you sign an NDA. They learn everything about your business, everything they need. They know your systems, they know everything. So let's just say they haven't used the same systems. They go, okay, well, we looked at the market. We needed to change systems anyway. We got a new system. You're like, okay. So it's all of those things that you need to worry about when you sign an NDA. Because when you start selling your business and guys start doing a due diligence, they're opening it to you. Unless you buy a completely unrelated business. The three of us sit here today and we go, okay, we're going to go buy a window cleaning business. Completely unrelated. Okay.
Had one of those a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah. So then we need a good team to run it because we can't go running, So it's about understanding what you're buying, why you're buying it, what is the benefit in buying it. Because very often, I'll use this as an example. When you've got IFAs, they do something called a BSP, which means that you've got financial advisors retiring and their book is worth a lot of money, and then a new advisor will buy it. Okay. And then that's funded. But very often the fee that they earn versus the fee that they pay out, there's such a small differential. So let's just say they buy the book and it's going to give them 30 grand a year extra in fees, but they pay out 25. Okay, so you've got 5 grand extra. But by the time you factor in your time to spend, clients and everything, you're in a negative. Nobody does that. Nobody thinks about it. It just amazes me how people don't look at things like that and go, okay, well, is this really such a good deal? Or can I spend that time and that money growing my book organically?
There's definitely people that are getting a raw deal. There's definitely people getting a raw deal. And what would you say to them? Come and speak to me.
No, hindsight's a perfect science. Hindsight is would have, could have, should have. You need to do the work in the beginning, and you need to speak to the right people because you need to question why all the time. Why am I doing this? What's the benefits going to be into me? What does the long term look like in 10 years? I get that 10 years from now, you'll have paid off that loan and you could have grown that book. But what if you don't? What if you strike a loss? Are you prepared to run your business at a loss for 2 years or 3 years?
Yeah. There is other ways as well, which we can touch on in other episodes, I think. But merger, instead of acquisition, you can do a merger, or there's a franchising option.
Franchising, there's licensing. There's lots of mergers are always more tricky because think about it. Let's just say Michael and Johnny decide to merge. Okay.
Shivers, eh?
So now I'm thinking, we're creating a powerhouse. But judging by your body language, we're not creating a powerhouse.
You're kidding me.
Okay, so Michael and Johnny merge. Okay, who's going to be the boss?
Yeah, there's a bit of
That'd
that.
definitely be me.
Okay, so Michael, you want to be the boss?
I'll be on holiday, mate. You can do what you want.
He's on his mini retirement.
Yeah. Okay, so how are you going to feel by picking up Michael's slack because he's on holiday? Because you're merging in the same party.
I know.
Understanding what a merger means. It's a lot more difficult, especially if you've done it yourself.
Yeah.
If you understand, and good mergers, you can only have one chief. You can only have one boss who makes the decisions. And that's where mergers difficult, because culture, big issue in mergers.
It's the same idea with partnerships. They all seem great because you're all excited, but then you realise that somebody's carrying the can for somebody else, and then it's that irritation. They're not done that. They've not done this. He or she's doing this, and that becomes a bit difficult.
Right.
And
Like
people are very sorry, Mike.
Right.
A lot of people don't like uncomfortable conversations, so they just rather vent off to somebody else, which is completely wrong. Attack all the fears, attack the problems.
I think I was just going to say, if you're moving in the right direction, the same direction, then it's easy. It's when it starts to go different directions, that's when the problem.
That only happens for a period of time.
Yeah.
Here's another one. The reality sets in because people have different families, different flavours, different ideas, and then what happens, I feel, is anything can happen. Somebody falls ill, they split with their partners, something happens along the way, and it can destroy businesses as well because they're both relying on people, the partners, they're both relying on each other, and somebody might want to get out earlier, somebody, there's just so many things that can happen, but when you're your own entity, you're running your own company, you make your decisions, you live and die by the decisions you make, but you're not accountable to anybody else, which is actually a great place to be in sometimes, because you know that you're not letting anybody really else, you're not really letting anybody else down, just yourself.
Yeah. So just touching on that point, if you're in a partnership or you multiple directors, multiple shareholders, what does your shareholders agreement say? Okay. Your shareholders agreement, think about it as divorce agreement. Okay. And this is just little tips, is from day one, decide how you're going to value your business. So if one partner steps out, you know the valuation methodology. You can plan on how to value it. There's different things that happen because despite your best intention, you might not be shareholders forever. And I've seen shareholders burn businesses to the ground because of egos, because they didn't want to get on. And if those things aren't in place, so it's a shareholders agreement. Very few guys have got a shareholders agreement. It's what we can do and what we can't do. We take something that our accountant, our solicitor drafts, okay, and it's a standard. But we don't build in the exceptions. It's how we're going to value this business. What happens if I want to sell, but you don't want to buy me, and I go out into the open market? What happens then? What if nobody wants to buy me, and I want to get out? What do we do there? Okay.
I think when you have a shareholders agreement, it was actually, because it's the first time that I've had a proper shareholders agreement, and it's how the people that are turning up, and what's getting said, and what's the takeaways from the meetings. And it's really interesting because you get a flavour for everybody, and the people that have been in business for a long time, you go, wow, you're really a right intellect. You're actually very good at this.
Thanks, Johnny.
Aye, you're very welcome. But with shareholder agreements, I think you set it out from day dot. These are the rules. These are the standards. This is the parameters that we walk and talk in. Will everybody agree? And what's the accountability factor?
There we go.
And you learn that over a period of time in your journey. But I think when you put the rules out there, everybody knows.
Yeah, when does a shareholder get paid?
You can split that up over the course of the year. It could be 2 payments. It could be one-off payment. When you get your return on investment, when the profits are there, or you can drip feed it back into the business to pay the shareholders back. But it could be over a 5-year period. Okay. Depends.
Whatever you've agreed.
So do you know the shareholder gets paid last?
Always last.
So think about this. The sales come in. The first person I have to pay is my suppliers. If they don't, then I have to pay my staff. Because if they don't come to work, I don't have a business. Then I have to pay my expenses. Then I have to pay VAT. And then I have to pay taxes. And only if there's money left after all of that can I as a shareholder benefit. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you need to be sure. It's really, really interesting. You can be a director and a shareholder. Okay, shareholders need to get dividends. So if I'm in the business and I'm a shareholder, I expect a dividend. And your dividend policy comes from your shareholders agreement that says, if we make X amount of profit, we will keep 30% in the business and we'll declare 70%. Now I know that if we make profit, there is going to be issues. So if you think about large organizations, you think about things like Berkshire Hathaway, they have got what they call an annual general meeting. And the annual general meeting, they go, we've made so much profit. This is our dividend. Everybody's going to get some money about it. Why don't we do it for small businesses? We miss that basics. It's never in the big things. It's the basics, especially if you've got multiple shareholders. Because when you're drawing, let's just say you're used to drawing 50 grand in dividends, okay? And the business takes a downturn. Where's that 50 grand going to come from?
Well, you ain't getting it.
You're not getting it. And then what do? Who do you blame?
But this is where the accountability factor is when you're having a shareholders agreement. What is everybody doing into this business? What are they contributing to? And you need to have a level playing field for everybody's contributing. What their attributes are, you bring it to the table, because that's why you've actually asked these people to come on. Yeah. As a shareholder, they're bringing something to the table. But once you don't bring something to the table, then there's a consequence for that. But that's, again, it's just keeping it basics. There's rules, there's standards.
And it's about those rules. It's about defining them on day one so that everybody knows what the rules are. Because if you don't know what the rules are, you're going to bend them.
So even, I think there's 4 shareholders in another business. And even when you're taking your notes, every 2 weeks we have a Zoom meeting. So you're taking notes, takeaways, who's responsible for that, right? The notes are shared as well, because you're going through this, there's another thing there, you have to show HMRC that you're taking all the notes for the shareholders agreements. Yeah. And it's really interesting when people come back, they're like, I've not done that bit, but I'm going to get to this because of X, Y, and Z. And you're like, right. So there's that accountability factor.
It is. It's a good accountability factor.
And it's so important in business because you need everybody's input. I think it's fascinating, but I can see how and why it would go completely wrong.
Well, let's go back slightly there, but just to finish up, give me 5 points to take away then if you're thinking about acquisition.
Numbers, growth strategy, cash flow, reliance on you, and customer journey.
There you go.
I tell you what, that was brilliant.
And with it all,
this is your world.
Shape it.
Or someone else will.